welcome back to our show. Lots of interesting information on, A, the real estate market, B, how people are contributing to better inventory, and of course there is that one thing that people don't always think about when it really comes to the real estate market, which is, what goes on inside a house that maybe makes people want to buy it a little bit more. Cynthia Chomos joins us, a Feng Shui consultant, color designer, space clearing specialist, and well-recognized speaker who's provided over 2,500 consultations for homes and businesses throughout the area, Hawaii, and Europe. That's cool. That's a good little perk to get to go to Europe for work.
Yes, it is.
That's awesome. Well, welcome, Cynthia. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm excited to have you because we do talk about the real estate market all the time, and we've talked about staging and whatnot, but there's more than maybe just the pretty looks of a house that will maybe draw people's eyes and inspire emotion. I feel like that's what Feng Shui is, unless I'm completely off.
No, you're very right on. Feng Shui is the Chinese art of placement and design for creating harmonious environments. And it's based on the premise that people experience prosperity and harmony in their lives when they live in harmoniously designed homes. And simply put, it's simply how the person and place interact. We are constantly being influenced by our environment, for better, for worse. And certainly buyers are going to be attracted to a home, or they could be repelled from a home.
So, okay, and I'm not, to me, I feel like it's kind of artsy, artsy-fartsy stuff, but it must work more than that. I mean, there must be some truth to it.
Feng Shui complements good form, function, and aesthetics, but it really speaks to the energy of a space. Okay, and how we move through a space, the flow, the colors, how we experience. A home might be too dark. It might have too much light, or it might have too many windows.
Like
so
blinding
that we don't
somebody is bad upon entry.
Yes, and there's certain principles that we follow that create a good feeling and a good experience in a home.
So how does that? What are some of those basic principles or rules? Because I think that I've heard you'll catch like one thing about like how a bed should face, and then you think you know something, which is where I stand. I don't know anything. Which is why we have you here as the expert, and I don't pretend to know much about it. But when you start looking at what are some of those principles that somebody could maybe go home and create this flow within their home.
Okay, furniture placement is very, very important. And there are 4 rules to how we place furniture in a room, whether it's a home, office, or a bedroom. The first rule is to be out of the direct path entering into the room. So if you're walking into your bedroom, the last place you want to have your bed is directly in front of you because it blocks the flow, and you literally have to move around that bed. The second is that you want to have a solid wall of support behind you. So we would never orient our desk where we're facing out a window and we've got our back to the entrance. We want to have a sense of support behind you. It's what we call the mountain of support. Mm-hmm. It's interesting on this note that, a dog will never sit with its back to the entrance, right? A dog always knows instinctually to be in command and control of their space. So if we have our back to a wall and we can see the entrance, that's the third principle, is the ability to see the entrance to a room. That creates a sense of feeling proactive and safe within our environment.
Sounds like if you are a mobster, that is also how you should live, right?
That's right. They're in the back of the restaurant,
back
against the wall.
Up against the wall, watching the entrance.
That's right. It's the command spot.
That's funny. So so when you start looking at furniture placement, these are things that you can move them around, and so we talk about going in a door. So my desk, I'll talk about my desk is, you walk in and you walk right into it.
Okay, so that's a bit vulnerable because energy flows rather quickly into a room. So you're right in that direct path. If you could move your desk back more to the center of the room and ideally have your back to a wall, be able to look out a window and also be able to see the entrance, that would be much more supportive. It's kind of that executive position. You've got more space in front of you because if you are facing a wall, you're working in very limited space. You're literally up against a wall versus being pulled back and having much more expanded energy and
We are
vision
going to have
around
to get
you.
my IT guy then, because let me tell you, I'm going to need a new outlet for the internet and my phone in order to move my desk. So maybe that'll give us a reason to do it.
Yes.
So tell me more about you talked about color also, and that's a big piece of this.
Color is so important. Color impacts our mood. If you look at the science of color, red has the longest and slowest wavelength, which is why red is the most stimulating and motivating of colors. So when we do an analysis of a home, there are certain rooms that are very active and social, such as the living room, dining room, kitchen. Those would be areas where we could work with accents of brighter colors. You know, maybe the red hue, a terracotta, a yellow is often a great kitchen color. You know, it's very uplifting. And conversely, in a bedroom or in a quiet study, those are more restful, introspective spaces. So we would work with cooler, muted, you know, your blues, your greens, violets would support the function or the energy of that particular space. So color, you know, and it impacts our mood. We live in the Northwest and it's gray. We're getting
Yeah, how's
into
gray do for feng shui?
yeah, gray's pretty bland.
Yeah, you can see the studio. We're full of it here.
Yes, gray walls and gray view out the window.
Yeah.
So
But my back is to a wall.
yeah,
Kinda.
you're good. You're doing good.
Okay.
Feng shui wise. But color is, you know, it's low cost, high impact. You know, a little color goes a long way, whether it's pillows on a sofa or painting an accent wall in a bedroom. It can really enhance our mood and shift the energy of a space.
And then you talked about flow. I mean, this space, the actual flow. I mean, what does that mean?
We want
Especially after telling me that I have energy coming directly into my office wall, just bashing me all day.
Yes, you're vulnerable in that position. But flow is really about spatial design and the right amount of open space, right amount of, you know, spaces occupied by furniture. As an example, most stagers will place a sofa facing the fireplace. Okay, that's common. You know, you want to look at the fire. However, if the buyer is walking into that room, they've got their back. The sofa has the back to the buyer. And so we would prefer to have furniture opposite each side, you know, of the fireplace so that there's a sense of flow, or the buyer could actually imagine themselves coming in and sitting down. So there can be blocks through furniture that can disrupt the flow within a home.
And by flow, I mean, are you saying how somebody would more naturally walk through it or imagine themselves? I mean, what does it mean, the flow?
It is, to a certain extent, the traffic flow, how we move through the space, but we would also look at empty corners, and that's where chi or energy can get stuck in corners. So we might add a plant that kind of rounds out that corner, and that creates more movement through the space. Also, the choice of furniture, instead of having very square or rectangular, for example, an entry table that's square and rectangular that has sharp points, we would prefer to have a demi-lune table because that creates
what is
more
a
an organic.
demi-lune
Demi-lune
table?
is like a half round.
Okay.
So we don't have these sharp corners coming out, and it creates more of a sense of flow. Nothing in nature is straight. And Feng Shui seeks to create that organic experience because most homes, you know, they're square walls. And then we tend to line up our furniture against those walls, and it becomes very linear and very unnatural. So furniture placement, looking at curves, round tables versus square are great ways to balance out the shapes.
So, you know, I want to tie this back to then if somebody's, like, say, selling their house, right? And, you know, we could even take something like that, maybe like Aaron Fairchild, like who we just talked to with Green Canopy. So you have this very efficient home as it comes to the actual, you know, the energy that you're purchasing from the power company. But so it sounds like there's also ways to make the flow so that somebody may even want to purchase that home more based on furniture arrangements and things of that nature.
Exactly. And we look at the different thresholds of emotional appeal. So the first is the view of the house. And from a feng shui perspective, the front door is what we call the mouth of qi or energy. And so if it's hidden, then there's a hidden connection happening. So we might bring in or suggest, some terracotta pots with colorful flowers at the start of the path to that front door and place them strategically so that visually you're led to that front door. And I consulted with a realtor once, and of course everybody was using the garage to enter the home. And I went to the architectural front door, and there was a sisal mat on the floor there that had a bee that was, flying across this sisal mat, and it said "buzz off." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? And this house is for sale, and you're telling the buyers to buzz off?" Okay. Anyway, it was one of those extremes.
Right next to the no soliciting sign.
Yeah.
We're here with Cynthia Chomos and CynthiaChomos.com. So, you talk about consulting with real estate agents, and you have a school for real estate sales. In fact, how does that all tie in? I mean, with real estate agents, with Feng Shui, and how can a real estate agent even make Feng Shui a piece of their, maybe something that they add to their listings, and how effective is it?
Well, it's an important piece of working with buyers. Many buyers are very familiar with Feng Shui principles, and there are certain homes you would not want to take a Feng Shui buyer to. A home that's at the end of a T, where cars are literally driving down the street directly at a home. That's very vulnerable. Homes that are below street level are not necessarily.
It's also lots of street light, lots of car lights going right
and
in.
Living in that home, you're always going to feel driven at or vulnerable or feel like you're not really on solid ground, right?
hoping people's brakes have been inspected so they're not coming right into your home.
So, a Feng Shui savvy buyer is going to want to work with a Feng Shui savvy realtor. And also when it comes to staging the home, Feng Shui principles go a long way. There's many layers to Feng Shui, and I actually teach clock hour classes for realtors on how to incorporate Feng Shui principles in very practical, tangible ways. So my goal is to demystify the principles and put them into very practical terms.
Yeah, well, it sounds like just simply from the fact of, even if there are people who are familiar with it and that's a potential buyer, I mean, right there would make it more appealing to somebody who is involved with Feng Shui. And if it's not appealing, if somebody is not overly involved in it, well, then there is the idea of that actually creating a better flow, so it may also help. So
I've had homes sell. They've been on the market 3 or 4 months. I've been brought in to do some Feng Shui for an hour and a half, and 2 weeks, a month later, it's sold. So there is and the only thing that's shifted really is
a couple plants and some furniture,
moving the furniture,
colors.
I
love it. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Cynthia. We do have to go to break, but when we come back, Heather Moore will join us along with all of our in-studio guests, John Payson and Aaron Fairchild. We'll be right back after this break. You're listening to Brassionomics.